enjoy coming to work every day knowing that clients are depending on me to guide them through whatever financial needs they have.
Every client we have is different. And so it's really about finding out what's really the most important thing per client.
With financial planning, everything is interconnected. So a comprehensive plan means that you're taking care of income needs now, income needs in the intermediate term, and income needs long term. We'll do an asset cycle portfolio. We'll do a risk-aligned test. We'll do a life insurance audit or a life insurance review.
And so when we build a deep relationship with our clients, then we can take a step back. And then we can look at different options to help them specifically get to their goals. One of the things I feel our job is as advisors is to introduce strategies to clients that maybe they did not know that they were out there. But it's our idea, our job to come out and say, have you ever thought about this?
And the planning it's not always about income, but a lot of it is also about the legacy. So the element of family is very important to us, and it's important to our clients.
Hello, my name is Steve Jablonski, and I'm the host of Financially Speaking with Jeff Bush. We are rolling into tax season, as we do every year, and so the topic today is going to be on taxes. And before we get to that, I want to welcome here Jeff Bush, and he's got some things to say. That's exciting things going on with Informed Family Financial.
Hello, Steve. Welcome to the show, and happy 2021. It's hard to believe that here we are, and I think for a lot of people, they're glad to see the calendar turn into 2021 because 2020 was such a difficult year with the pandemic. And of course, tax season is upon us, but we have a lot of exciting things going on at the company. First of which is Steve is now a brand new partner of Informed Family, and congratulations, Steve. And I know you're excited about joining the fray, and we're excited to have you, obviously. And you've been with us as an advisor for 4 years, and now you're a full-fledged partner, so that's exciting. Along with that, we have our 20-year anniversary. So we opened up our doors all the way back in 2001, another difficult time in our history. And so we have our 20-year anniversary. So we feel somewhat of an accomplishment just to survive for 20 years. But along with that, we have an exciting announcement, and that is we want to promote the local food banks, which we've been supporting for our time as a company. And when anybody that comes in that's watching this show today for a complimentary consultation, maybe it's a good time to review your taxes, because we're going to talk about taxes today. We're going to make a $20 donation either to the local food bank or the food bank of your choice, doesn't matter. But the pandemic has really put these food banks in a difficult position. They've been helping out so many families, and we want to help them out as best we can. So if you come in for a free complimentary consultation, we'll make a $20 donation to the food bank in your name. So with that,
we also, to piggyback on that, we also have some upcoming seminars in March. There's going to be one here locally, and then one near our Autobahn office.
Yeah, so we can put those dates up on the screen.
Yep.
We'll be right here at the Blue Elephant, which is 4 stories below us, as we record this show today from our studio. Not from our studio. It's a makeshift studio from our office here in Pottstown. We used to go to a studio at Pottstown High School, but now we're sort of used to doing it here in our office, and I kind of like, because we don't have to travel very far. It's just like in the conference room next door, and we're and we're doing our show. But anyway, the Blue Elephant's down on the first floor, and we're going to be doing a seminar there for the first time. And then we're also going to be at Chadwick's, which is just a few miles down the road on 422. We're going to be doing a seminar there as well. So it's going to be nice to get back into the fray, so to speak. It'll be almost a year. It'll be over a year since we've last done a live public seminar. So we want to get back into that, and we'll be practicing all the safety measures, the social distancing, and all the proper protocols. But we're excited to be out there live, and we feel there's a lot of demand for these workshops now. The world has changed, and people are need information, financial information now more than ever. And people are retiring maybe sooner than they had anticipated because of this pandemic. And there's been a lot of dynamics that have affected the world of financial planning. So we're excited to be back at it.
And as our name indicates, Informed Family, we've been busy in the news over the last year. And we have a slide here that tells us where we've been getting the word out.
Yeah. We had a pretty successful public relations campaign last year, and we were in a lot of different news media. We were in the USA Today, we were in Kiplinger, CNBC, KYW, et cetera, et cetera. We have a banner up that shows you all the news media that we were able to get published in. So that was certainly exciting.
Yep. So let's get to the topic. And I know when we sit down with clients and people talking to us as far as prospects go, taxes really comes up, especially when there's a change in the administration. We don't have our crystal balls not no better than a lot of people until things actually become law. But with that, let's talk about things we can do before the 15th, and some things that we're going to get into some general things of different types of investments.
Yeah, I mean, taxes are one of the pillars that we cover when we're doing the planning with our clients. And of course, now more than ever, we have a new administration down in Washington, and it'll be interesting to see how taxes are going to be treated under a new administration. And there'll be changes, and you can't help but think, geez, taxes are probably going to go up at some point, Steve. I mean, we're all this borrowing we're doing, these stimulus programs, you got to think there's going to be some type of increase in taxes at some point. So there's a lot of things to be mindful of when you're doing financial planning, especially as you're working, and then even as you're retired.
Yeah, and Jeff, why don't we start with something pretty simple? And when someone has an investment, there's long-term capital gains and there's short-term capital gains.
So short-term capital gains are 1 year or less. So if you hold an asset for less than a year and you sell it at a gain or a loss, it's treated as short term. So if you buy, let's say you go out and buy a stock today. Let's say you buy 100 shares of XYZ stock. And you sell it maybe 6 months from now. Because it goes up in price, and you sell it, you're going to pay short-term gains on that stock. Versus if you hold it a year and a day, just a little over any time over a year, that's treated as a long-term gain, and those rates are different. The tax treatment on long-term gains are generally more favorable than short-term gains, and the reason for that is there's incentive to hold on to these investments for longer term. So that's something to be mindful of when you're going to sell any security that's treated as a short-term or a long-term gain.
And so when we look back, and there's really a couple things we're looking at here. There's your individual tax rates, and there's also the long-term capital gains. And we have a slide here that looks at the historical, and I get the question all the time, and we get the questions, where do you think these are going?
Yeah. Well, Steve, I have the same question for you. Where do you think they're going?
Well, really what surprises people from when you look at the slide, and people don't realize that how high that your individual taxes were at one point.
Yeah, well, that's certainly true. I mean, if you look back historically at these tax rates, like I remember back in the 70s, how far back? Oh wow, we go all the way back to the 50s. But yeah, I mean, we've come a long way, and I think everything's relative. So like you look at taxes are going to go up. Taxes are outrageous. And I think if you compare our tax structure to tax structures of other countries, you see that we don't have it so bad. But I think the grass is always greener on the other side. If you don't have money, you always say, well, the wealthy, they don't pay any taxes. And then if you're wealthy, the wealthy say, well, we pay, we're paying a lot of taxes. So it's all, or if you're in one country, you think, well, geez, in the other country, their tax structure is better. So I think that, to an extent, the grass is always greener on the other side. But if you look at this, Steve, if you look at this graph, and like I can remember, some of these tax, like I remember when Ronald Reagan was back in office back in the 80s, right? He had this big the Tax Reform Act of 1986. And you see how tax rates just came down so sharply, and they've been really coming down pretty steadily since then. And this graph is maximum individual tax rates and capital gains rates. And of course, a lot of these tax acts were done to stimulate the economy, right? So they kept lowering tax rates, and eventually, as you look at not only our economy, but our debt, national debt, the tax structure, I look at, and I think of, especially when I think of you have children, I have children, and you think about, what their generation, what taxes are going to mean for them. And you can't help but think that taxes are going to go up at some point. But anyway, I think that this is a timely topic.
Yep. And so when we look at how an investment is taxed, and the next slide really shows that there are three buckets. You have your always taxable bucket. You have what's deferred, and then you also have some tax-free investments. So I want to get into that a little bit and kind of tell us what fits into those buckets.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So what's taxable is something that's very liquid, right? It's taxable. So you have access to it. You're going to pay taxes on it. So that could be anything from money in the bank to a stock to a bond or a mutual fund. You're going to get a 1099 on that at the end of the year, and that means you're going to pay taxes on it. So in its simplest form, let's think about the bank account, right? And we know interest rates aren't very high right now, but let's forget about that for this discussion. So you're going to make interest on the money that you have in the bank, whether it's a money market or a savings account, it's paying interest. So that interest is taxable. So the way I like to explain that is there's a trade-off with liquidity, right? So you have instant access to your money, it's liquid, but it's also taxable, okay? So if you compare that to something that's tax deferred, the next bucket on this slide, and there you have maybe an IRA or a 401k or some kind of retirement account, or maybe an annuity, right? And everything there is tax deferred. So, and this could be a bank instrument also, right? So you got to be careful there. But So it could be your plan at work. You might have this money invested in a mutual fund, or it could be anything that's an IRA or a 401k, or some kind of an annuity that's held by an insurance company. Here, your taxes are deferred. Okay, so the tax deferral on that means that it's making money, but you're not paying tax on it right now. Defer meaning that somebody's going to pay tax on that at some point in the future. It's either going to be you during your lifetime, maybe when you retire, or maybe your family when they ultimately inherit it. But it is tax deferred.
And when we look at long-term capital gains and we look at the money that's in deferral, that's not taxed as in long-term capital gain. So how's that taxed?
When it is ultimately taxed, it will be taxed as ordinary income. So your ordinary income rates are higher than your long-term long-term capital gains. Long-term capital gains, they're taxed as ordinary income, right? So you have to be mindful of that as well. But tax deferral is usually a good thing, especially if you're a young investor and you're investing in a retirement account and you have many years. Let's say you're a 30-year-old and you've got 30 plus years of investing in a 401k. The tax deferral aspect of it is good, and of course then you get into the tax-free element of it here. And what's tax-free? So you've got Roths, whether it's a Roth IRA, whether it's a Roth 401k, right? So inside your 401k you can do Roth, or you can do a conversion. You can convert from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. Once you're in a Roth, the growth inside of a Roth account is tax-free. That means that there is no tax. It's after-tax money. The tax has been paid. You're getting tax-free growth on that account forever, for your lifetime, for the lifetime of your spouse, and for also the lifetime of your beneficiaries, for your children. Even though your children are going to have to take a distribution on the Roth IRA account, but it's all tax-free money. And I guess the other thing that we should include under tax-free is these tax-free municipal bonds. You can also get tax-free income there. So there's a lot of things you can do, and we're big believers in the Roth. If you can start a Roth when you're just starting out working, put money away in a Roth account, that money's going to be tax-free for your lifetime. Pretty strong.
And we talk about in the investment side of it. How about real estate with a 1035 exchange, or which a lot of people don't really, they're not really aware of it.
With real estate, I believe it's called a 1031 exchange. When
1031, yes.
Yeah, when you're transferring real estate, you're basically transferring one piece of real estate for another piece of real estate, and you said 1035 exchange because that's the world we live in with life insurance and with annuities, but the concept is the same. You're simply exchanging one. So a prime example would be if you have, let's say you live in your house, Steve, and you've lived in your house for 15 years, and over the course of the 15 years, maybe your house has appreciated in value over that time, but now, you've decided that you want to move for whatever reason. Maybe you've got more kids, or you're relocating because of a job, or you just need a bigger house. The gain in that can just be rolled over into the next house. You can do that without a problem. And in businesses, it's the same thing. You just roll the gain into a new piece of property. And again, that's just incentive to own real estate.
And with taxes, something very simple that people overlook is simple gift. And we really recommend that for people that can do that. So tell us a little.
Gifting?
Gifting, yes.
Well, gifting is something that, if you have assets that you want to transfer to the next generation, I mean, the way gifting works is you can gift up to $15,000 a year to any individual. So, Steve, you could gift money to your children, each of them, $15,000 a year. Your wife, also $15,000 a year. It doesn't have to be your kids either. You can gift it money. You could just be a good Samaritan and gift money to your next door neighbor if you were so inclined. But it's $15,000. The other thing that is often overlooked is the lifetime exclusion that you have. You can gift up to $1 million in your lifetime. You can gift to somebody else or something else. It would be another person. But if the $15,000 a year isn't enough, you have that lifetime gift that you're allowed. So you don't have to wait until you die to begin giving your money away.
And while we're on gifting, there's still a tax law around your required minimum distributions and taking money out that you can give to a charity. And hopefully it stays for a while.
Yes, so the way that works is you can so when you're 72, you have to take a required minimum distribution, or what we often refer to as an RMD, required minimum distribution. If you direct that required minimum distribution to a qualified charity, then that money is not taxed. Okay, so let's say your required minimum distribution is $10,000, okay, and you decide that rather than take constructive receipt of that $10,000, you want to send that $10,000 to the local food bank. Mm-hmm. That's a qualified charity. Okay, so you have the custodian that's holding your money, right? Could be the local brokerage house, or the local wire house, or the bank, or whoever's holding your money. You have them make the check payable to the charity, to the food bank, or the church, or whoever, and they'll get that money. Then will not be, you're satisfying your required minimum distribution, but at the same time it's not taxed, and that money would otherwise be taxed, and now it's not a taxable event. So it's a pretty powerful strategy, and we're going to spend a lot more time talking about that later in the year when we address taxes with our clients. But it's a pretty powerful strategy.
And let's say someone or a couple has a really high year of income, and they really want to give a lot of money this year, a lot more than other years, but maybe they don't have a specific charity to give it to. What actions can they take?
Well, in that instance, one of the strategies that we use are donor-advised funds. So the way a donor-advised funds work, and we could spend a whole show just on donor-advised funds, but the way a donor-advised fund works is you're putting money in the bank with this donor-advised fund, and it's being earmarked for a future charitable contribution. So if you want to put a large chunk away this year, but you don't necessarily want to benefit the charities this year, you can just stick it in and it's being invested, and it's making money as an investment. But meanwhile, you can decide at a future time that you want to give money to maybe your school, or maybe a church, or again maybe the food bank. That's all money that you can donate down the road, but it doesn't have to be this year. So it's a good way to manage your contributions, donor advised funds. If that's something that you want more information, I'll contact our office and I'll sit down and go over how all that works.
And if we skip over to health and insurance, and I know HSAs are becoming a lot more popular, and what are some of the benefits of that to people?
Well, an HSA is a health savings account. So the way that works is you're putting money away for future health care costs. So you put money into into this health savings account, and the health savings account then you get some tax breaks there. So you're not paying tax on you're putting money away that you're not taxed on in that health savings account. So it's a direct reduction to your taxable income, and then you can use that money to fund maybe your copay on your insurance, maybe your deductible on your insurance, or maybe things that your insurance doesn't cover. There may be some special insurance or some special health care needs that you have that aren't covered by your insurance that you can use from the health savings account. It's a pretty flexible and good way to put money away on a tax favorable basis to cover those insurance or those healthcare needs.
And with that too, it has the flexibility that you can accumulate it for future, so it doesn't have to be used this year.
Yeah, the health savings account. Yeah, so if there's limits on that of how much you can put away per year, and I'm not sure what the limit is this year, but it's like somewhere around $7,500, something like that. Again, if you call our office, we can get more information to you on that. But yeah, I mean, you can roll that over. If you don't spend it this year, you can roll it over into next year, and that's a pretty effective way. And a lot of times, while you're working, it's a good way to sock dollars away for healthcare costs that you're going to need when you retire. Because typically, people that are retired, their healthcare needs are greater than people that are still working, simply because as you get older, you have more needs.
And so as people get older, they accumulate more money. What is a trust? How does a trust come into play?
Well, a trust can be done. A trust is really designed for a lot of different things, right? You could have a special needs trust for somebody who, you have a special needs child or a special needs grandchild. You could have a life insurance trust. You put something into, for a life insurance. You could have it for estate planning purposes. But a lot of times, I always joke. A lot of times you set up a trust in those instances where you don't trust, right? So maybe you don't trust your kids, or maybe you don't trust the government, or you don't trust, right? But and if you put the money into a trust, the trust has very specific instructions on how that money gets spent.
Yes, and to really get the tax break, it does have to be an irrevocable.
Yeah, so if it's an irrevocable trust, an irrevocable trust, that means it's owned by someone else other than you as the individual. So it could be, it's owned by the trust. It has separate trustee, has separate tax ID number, and with those irrevocable trusts, it's a separate entity, and it's typically it's done to avoid estate taxes, avoid probate and estate taxes.
And so when we talk about the relationships that we have with our clients, and we are fiduciaries, and that'd be a good way to finish up the session today.
Well, the fiduciary role that we have is really important, and one that that we take very seriously, and it basically we operate in the highest standard. I know Steve, you're a CFP, and the CFPs operate in a fiduciary role. I operate in a fiduciary role as well, it means you're acting in the best interest of your clients. So when you're sitting down with your client and you're putting a plan together, you're acting in their best interest. So in our mind, really, there's no other way to do it. As you know, you want to act in that fiduciary capacity. So as we come to a close here, again, I want to remind everybody of, this is the beginning of the year. We're celebrating our 20-year anniversary. We want to support the local food banks that are in such dire need right now. And if you decide that there's something on today's show that was of interest to you and you want to learn more about it, whether it's tax deferral or whether it's fiduciary or whether it's the health savings account, I know we talked about a lot of different things, but if there's anything that you want, or it could be something else. If you want more information and you want to sit down with us, a complimentary meeting, no obligation meeting, we'll make a $20 donation to the local food bank. And with that being said, I think we're rapidly running out of time here today. This is Financially Speaking.